Tech has evolved tremendously over the past decade. When we first started E27, there isn't any unicorns, right? There isn't any VCs as well. It was just really at the start of it. No one knows what's happening. No one knows what the trend could be, but everyone is excited. We see a lot of builders, people with dreams, with passions, building it up. The vertical has evolved to a point where Web 2.0 has been quite mature. You have infrastructure with the logistics, with payment. Most of the applications are there to solve problems. So trying to find a big problem to solve is tough at this point in time. But then again, you have verticals that has popped up over the years. AI is a big thing, crypto is a big thing. And I think you definitely see more trends coming up.
Welcome to Brave. Learn from Southeast Asia's best tech leaders. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. No BS on success. I'm Jeremy Au, venture capitalist, serial founder, Harvard MBA, science fiction nerd, and dad of 2 daughters. Every week, we debate startup news, interview changemakers, answer listener questions, and share personal insights. Join our movement of over 40,000 members and get transcripts, resources, and community at www.bravesea.com. Stay well and stay brave. Evo Commerce sells premium, affordable supplements and personal care electronics, operating in Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. Strive brand sells salon-grade quality products for home use and using direct-to-consumer channels through its online retail channels and physical shops. BBAC is the leader in hangover remedies in over 2,000 retail outlets across the region. Learn more at bbac.co and stryv.co. Hey, Roy, really excited to have you on the show.
Hey, Jeremy, how's it going?
Good. You're definitely the direct-to-consumer king in Southeast Asia from my perspective.
No, I wouldn't call it that, but thanks for the compliment.
So yeah, I wanted to take the opportunity to hear and share your journey as well. So could you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. No, first of all, Jeremy, really thank you for the opportunity to share our stories. My name is Roy, co-founder CEO of Evo Commerce. We are essentially supplements and personal care brand. So we sell high quality, premium, affordable products for younger consumers in the market that we're in. Been doing this for about 3 years, and I think it's been nothing but adventures throughout the years. And I think we're currently about 3 markets right now: Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. And I've been penetrating different channels as well. Started with online, moving on to retails and so on and so forth. And our hero products are a couple. So we double down on like really personal care hair products. So started with a hair dryer before moving to curler, straightener, shavers, and we're launching other categories in the oral care.
Awesome. Fantastic. So how did you get started in the tech space? I know that you share some overlap with Mohan Balani, right? The E27 founder. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This started about a decade ago. I was working in a bank, and basically, I think after a year, I knew that banking is not for me. I just have to A/B test and see where your career lies. And this is where I came across tech medias like E27 and Tech in Asia, etc. And I just so happened that I linked in Mohan through a cold call. Like, hey, dude, really love what you're doing. Can you give me a job? And he managed to meet up with me. And the scary part is that he actually brought one of the board of director, Nick Lim, over. And so it was intense. And somehow or rather, I managed to get a job. And it's super fortunate because I think platforms like Brave or E27, these are platforms for young aspiring entrepreneurs to learn and get plugged into the network and really get started. So I was doing that for about 3.5 years, really building tech conferences in Singapore, Thailand, Japan, and it was probably one of the best days of my life, just for 0 to 1 to start off the career. I think post that, I had an opportunity to join Grab. Back then, Grab was one of our big sponsors. And I think it was then 2016 that they wanted to start a financial services division. So I think that the key pitch is like, hey, we want to be a WeChat Pay for Southeast Asia. And I got bought in because back then, 90%, 95% of Southeast Asia's transactions are still cash. And it poses a big problem because I think there's fraud, there's errors, and there's taxation implications and whatnot. And we thought that if there's one person that can replicate the success of the Chinese giants, it will be Grab. Jump on the bandwagon, started off with 5 people. And within 4 years, we grew to like 2,000 people, launched a whole bunch of product lines, and we built payments and rewards programs for millions of customers across the region. And I think that in itself is an extremely fulfilling journey. Come mid of 2020, it was just right at the start of COVID. And me and my current Evo co-founder, Ming Hao, we did a bit of a career suicide, right? I think we thought that this might be the best time to start a company because if you look at traditionally, a lot of recessions and downturns are where new company got started. Look at Airbnb, we get Stripe. And we thought that, hey, why not we do that? So we came out, we started a live streaming software for a lot of celebrities and influencers. Because the problem statement is that a lot of them, during that period of time, they lost their jobs and there's literally nothing to do. So they started going on Facebook and they started doing live and just to sell and make a living, right? But everything is on pen and paper. So if today I sell 10 products, I'm going to write it all down. And there's no software that integrates to the streaming platform. So we thought, that, hey, why not? Well, it'd be quite interesting to build a Shopify for live streaming. So build it within 3 to 6 months, launched it, and GMV grew relatively fast. So within a year, we hit like 10 mil GMV. So I think it's all well, promising. Biggest problem is that I think there's twofold. One is addressable market is just too small. If you look at the China data, 2% of total GMV are live streaming, and usually it's non-recurring, so you need a lot of products. It's like a media company, right? You generally need new stuff to get people excited. Then the second thing is that we're worried that a lot of these streaming platforms will have their own checkout flow. So we had to pivot. We left 6 months of runway after a year. Things are like, I think the revenue can't really cover all the costs that we have. Hence, I think this was where DTC was born. We decided to do a big pivot. And I think 90% of the people that we know, and also even our own team, thought that we went nuts. Hey, you guys are payment professionals. Why do you suddenly try to sell like pills and drugs, right? And I think the first product is Bounce Back, which is the hangover supplement. And I think that is where we thought that it's a good thesis because within a year of training all this or supporting all these live streamers, we actually learned the back end, the supply chain, how to get licenses, how to talk to different manufacturers and so on and so forth. And we knew that if we can crack the demand side, we'll have a business of its own. I think that was probably the toughest time of the 3 years that we started the company because almost all investors that came in for live streaming wanted their money back. And they say, hey, please give me your money back. Like, it's hard-earned money. And these are all friends, right? Like, I think this is a very, very tough conversation. All the engineers and basically the team wanted to leave. And I think it's been a year and we are withdrawing like 2,000-3,000 a month and reality hits. Right? But I think having a very strong conviction is quite important. So we thought that, hey, this is really our last push. We want to try it out. And we felt comfortable with that big pivot. And yeah, we managed to do the 180 shift, sold the live streaming software for cheap, basically move on from there. I think this is from there until now, like nothing changed. It's been an interesting progress so far.
I think what's interesting is that you worked at two kind of like name brand early tech ecosystem players, right? That was E27, which was like the tech news and network, and obviously Grab as well that everybody knows. Could you compare and contrast those two experiences, even though they're both name brand tech companies, but what was the experience like?
Oh, it's so different. For E27, you can't ask for the better 0 to 1. When we first started, it's just like less than 10 people. And then it's 0 to 1 and maybe 1 to 1,000 is also quite different in terms of the experience. For 0 to 1, generally, you need to do everything, get hands dirty. It's a lot of sync up with Mohan to see what's the direction forward. I think every decision take up a lot of resourcing. So I think we just need to plan it better. We make tons of mistakes, but we also learn from that. But generally speaking, it's just a smaller setup. So like the team itself, like the 10 people that work with have to be extremely important, right? Everybody have to execute. And basically the key thing is just to find replicable models that you can build a business on. And the focus and the people are just a bit different. When I joined Grab, I think it's really a well-established organization. It's really a few hundred people. This is where you need to know your exact role and how you fit into the entire machine itself that has been built up, and being crystal clear on what are the objectives given to you and how do you execute it. And of course, I think Grab evolves extremely fast over the 4 years as well. I remember I have different roles every 3 months just to fit it in. But I think clarity of what you can deliver and being part of it and being a team player, those are like important skill sets. I would say it's really different. The magnitude is different as well because on one hand, it's like you're trying to figure out what to do. On the other hand, it's more of capital allocation, which are like places that we will put in more people in, structure it and building processes on it. So yeah, I think that's the key crux of it.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that in both of these organizations, you got promoted multiple times, right? So I think that's a very interesting piece. So obviously at E27, you were a BD manager, then became a head of BD, then became a general manager. And then in Grab, you started out as a manager in BizDev, then you became a senior manager, then you became a regional lead, and then eventually a regional head. So could you share a little bit more? Because for a lot of people, obviously, when they join tech companies, they always want to get promoted, right? So what was your secret, I guess, to getting promoted?
I think, first of all, I think luck plays a very important part. I think just really the right place, right time, and the right opportunity. So I'm super grateful for that. The second thing is that the mentality where a problem is given to you, how do you solve it to the best of your ability at the fastest time? I.e., can you be the arms and legs of your bosses? I think it's crucial because I think the moment you help them to solve problems and basically things move and they get a recognition, this is where the stars are aligned. I think, first of all, for me, every time I go into a role itself, I always ask what are the objectives of my manager as well also the organization and how I fit in. I think in Grab's context, which is very interesting, like I mentioned earlier on, I had different roles every 3 months. I think we are part of the team that really goes into all different problems and spend 3 to 6 months really just to solve it and basically pass it to someone better than us, then you move on. I think because of that flexibility and the adaptation of the role itself, you just get a lot of exposures. Roy did this and that. And I guess that really helps to speed up careers just because you have visibility, you have quantifiable projects that you can shout out on, get credibility. I think those generally helps a lot.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that you also were part of two big pieces of ecosystem developments. The first part of it was the tech news and the network. And the second, of course, was the payments network and the B2B merchant solutions as well. What's your view, at least, on those two trends, over those 6 years?
I think tech has evolved tremendously over the past decade. I remember when we first started E27 back in 11, 12, there isn't any unicorns, right? There isn't any VCs as well. It was just really at the start of it. No one knows what's happening. No one knows what the trend could be, but everyone is excited. We see a lot of builders, people with dreams, with passions, building it up. The vertical has evolved to a point where I think the Web 2.0 has been quite mature right now. We have infrastructure with the logistics, with payment. Most of the applications are there to solve problems. So trying to find a big problem to solve is tough at this point in time. But then again, you have verticals that has popped up over the years. AI is a big thing, crypto is a big thing. And I think you will definitely see more trends coming up. But I would say that the tech evolution has got to a point where if you're just going to do the same thing like 10 years ago, you're probably not going to make it. You just have to constantly evolve and learn from there. We do see the same trend as well with fintech and payment. So 16 is where I think financial inclusion is a really big thing. How do you get like bank accounts and payments for a lot of people within Southeast Asia, outside of Singapore, that is not exposed to this, or you just can't get a credit card or a bank account just because they don't have a passport or IT. I think those are different problem segments we're trying to solve. But I think with the recent tech winter, as well as the trends itself, I just got back from Japan and I talked to a lot of these payments ex-investors of ours, and they all say that I think the trends have moved on. No one really deploying into like fintech right now at this point of time, just because like later stage fundraising is tough. So yeah, I guess really trend comes and goes, but I think it's really more about learning how it evolves, and hopefully we can jump onto the next one, like a DTT when it's early.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that you made that transition in two ways, right? So one was you became a founder instead of a tech executive. And then the second part, of course, is that you went to discover product market fit, which is live streaming, eventually direct to consumer yourself. I guess the first one is, how did you decide that you said, I want to be a founder because I've done my 6, 7 years in tech companies? When did you say, I want to do this on my own?
Wow, that's a super deep question. Honestly speaking, I remember when, I mean, it sounds very cheesy, but I remember vividly when I was 8 or 9 and my primary school teacher was asking me, hey, what do you want to do when I grow up? And the first thing I said was, actually, I want to start my own company. So those early days, I'm not sure where it comes from, probably from my father. My dad is a wreck and bone man. So he collect trash for a living from Malaysia. I think life was not so smooth as well when I grew up, but it was fun because I see my dad building his own business. And I think even though collecting trash and reselling it and recycle, but there is a business of his own. And I think growing up with him gave me a lot of inspiration that, hey, this is a path that is interesting and I wanted to dabble in. So even since young, I was trading PlayStation. I bought it from a local forum like Hardware Zone and I resell it on eBay because these are all expats and you just earn some money from there. And that gives you a lot of initial validation that, hey, this could work, and selection of their lifestyle. And I think after 4 years of working in Grab and 4 years of working in E27, generally we felt that the experiences is extremely crucial to try out something, and we felt that we were ready back then.
Amazing. You decided to be a founder. And what's interesting is that you chose to be a founder in live streaming first and then eventually D2C. So could you share more about that product market fit discovery? Like, why did you choose live streaming first?
So I think we chose live streaming really because it's an easier transition. We were payment executives, and by building a backend platform, payments is a crucial part of it. We actually earn money from the payment service itself. Where people checked out, then we process it on the backend, then we return money to the merchants. So it was quite a natural transition to live streaming. But the challenge that we also face is that this is the first time we were managing engineers and managing tech. I think back in Grab or E37, we are more on the commercial side of things. less on managing engineers, but you start to manage technology or places that you're not so familiar with. This is where, for me personally, I actually believe in founder problem fit or founder solution fit. And I think when I talk to all the engineers, I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And this is one thing that Thaddeus from E27 gave me early on in my career. What they're good at, what you love doing, and what you aspire to do is totally different things. And you just have to figure it out. For me, I figured out in a hard way, and we burned like $1 million just to figure it out. But when we moved it to direct to consumer, where we learn all the supply chain and backend from the live humans, I think it's tough, but it's not as tough as learning coding and tech all over. And the demand front is something that we are comfortable. We are used to managing high transaction volume businesses, payments in Grab, and we are head to heart still a media trained. My co-founder actually started Tech in Asia, and I was running E37. And I think we love content. And I think for brands itself, content, branding, and really just working with influencers, I think these are things that we are extremely used to and we feel really comfortable and we enjoy doing as well. It was a stumble into brand building and direct consumer brand. But if you look at it backwards, in hindsight, it's actually a natural fit. We have the capability to run it. We enjoy doing it. I think it's just a good founder problem fit.
And what's interesting is that you then also figured out that founder problem market fit. What was the signal to you that live streaming was not it for you and direct to consumer was more it for you?
I think the real truth is if you wake up every morning and feel extremely miserable because you're not sure where you're going, you're working on things that you're not good at and you struggle. And I think it got to a point where the live streaming side, we don't enjoy coming to work every day just because we're not sure what's going on and we felt hopeless. We don't know how to actually move it forward. And basically, if you kind of pivot to a place where we are for the last 2-3 years at when we're doing D2C, every day is just exciting. It's all about building new products, going to new channels and territories, going to new markets itself. And I feel that the one indication with a right founder problem fit is really, do you get excited and do you feel comfortable waking up every day and do you look forward to going to work? It sounds a bit more non-quantifiable, but I actually think that it's a really good indication.
And what's interesting is that you never did direct to consumer before. I guess you were selling some small stuff, like you said, when you were younger, but that was your first time kind of selling direct to consumer. So what were some learnings that you made back then, mistakes or things that you learned?
I would break it into two phases. When we first started, we knew that no matter how good a product is, no matter how much backend and regulation, you need to crack the demand first. Demand is extremely important. If there's no demand, you can spend millions on R&D, you wouldn't get anywhere. We made a conscious decision. The first 2% that's the most important part of our D2C journey. One is the Prism Plus founder. His name is Jonathan Tan. He essentially grew the brand from 0 to over 9-digit figures, the brand itself. And most of it are mostly bootstrapped by the three founders. He is the extremely instrumental to help us go from 0 to 1. I remember I met him for the first time a couple of years back, and we really sit down for 5-6 hours. And I think he just wanted to learn a little bit more about fundraising and corporate structuring and whatnot, which I have some experience back in the days. And for him, he really taught us 0 to 1, how do you engage with influencers, which channels to work on, the buying intent and the buying journey, all from top, middle, bottom funnel. I think he's the one that really give us a light that, number one, this is really doable as a business because I've already done it and you can use me as a reference. And number two, whenever you have questions on how to do media buying and how to create content, he's always there and he will just do a FAQ with you. So he has been extremely instrumental. The second part is we also chanced upon the ex-CMO of Razer. He was there. He retired in 2013 when it went IPO. He has an agency and he really also helped us for the first 1 year itself, teaching us everything we need to do from 0 to 1. So as founders, I generally feel that number one is the knowledge attainable. Can we actually pick that up and do you have the capability? Number two is that who are these guys that have done it before that we can learn from? The second phase, we actually just started about 4 shops in Singapore and Malaysia. The thesis is that we have spent so much money online that people know about the brand and we can go retail. Learning about retail is also a validation of its own. And I think over 6 months, we actually talked to about 10 to 15 founders just to really learn inside out on, is there a viable channels? What are things that we should look out for? What's a good 0 to 1? What's a good to market strategy? And unit economics, like do you make money? And generally speaking, like talking to all these different founders itself that has already done it, give us comfort on the investments that we're going to put in. As well as, I think the chances of success to start off a retail chain is a lot higher as well. So I think back to your question, it's really about just getting people that have been there, done that, really just working with them to get some of these information.
And what's interesting is that you've made some decisions along the way for different product categories. How did you discover your first product? And then obviously remember you did your first product and then you had to go choose the second product. And I was like, what's the link between the first product and second product? So yes, D2C is a big category, but you could have made kombucha, you could have made pencils, so many things you could do D2C, right? So what was your thought process?
I think the first product we wanted is something that is close to our heart, like it solves our own problem statements and we have conviction on the potential because we are users ourselves. The first product that we did was a hangover supplement. I think back in the days, I managed a lot of the bank partners and my job requires me to entertain them regularly 3 to 4 times a week. And one day, like one Japanese investor just gave me a hangover from Japan and I thought, this was wonder. And I couldn't find it anywhere else in this part of the world. And we felt that it's a problem statement that we felt strongly. There is a clear demand for it. It's just that people are not educated of the problem and the solution itself is also hard to come by. So we jump right in, right? I think the first product is called B-Back and basically I think we had good interactions from there just because it was the right product market fit. And I think we post a hangover, we actually started a lot of different supplements. We dabble into sleep, we dabble into liver care, we dabble into hydration and different problem statements. The learning from there is that even there is synergy or there is a clear direction of one specific brand by going to like sleep supplements and liver. The thing is that each of these product and problem statement doesn't really correlate to the other. So when we launched sleep itself, it's really quite mature. There are a couple of players doing it. We didn't have that great traction as we had for Bounce Back. And this is where we go back to the drawing board and say, hey, it went back to a small TAM, small problem statement challenges that we had from the live streaming where hangover in Singapore and Hong Kong is small. So this is where we need a second vertical, a second win that really can scale because at the end of the day, we are still a VC-backed business. And it just so happened that, and this is also quite coincidental, I chanced upon a 50-year-old factory introduced by a celebrity that wanted to build product lines. And when I go deeper dive, they are actually the second largest salon brand in the world, building things for professional hairstylists. And you know, I was like, okay, why not just ship over some products and I'll try it out. And when they ship over like the hair dryer, that's a hero product. It blew my mind because I mean, my wife is using a Dyson. Then I think we used to use like Panasonic, Philips. Like there's nothing in between. And we can see a clear product market fit for a premium affordable hair tools. And basically, when I pitched to my investors and all that, they were like, what is this, man? You're selling supplements and why do you suddenly switch it to hair product? And why hair dryer? It's like, there's like easily 100 brands out there doing the same thing. And we felt that as long as your thesis is sound, I think it was at a point where it was after a year, we already know about digital marketing. And our thesis is that if we use our digital marketing expertise to launch a new product segment that we believed in, it will take off. And truth be told, it took us about a year to hit 100,000 for B-Back, but hairdryer took us a month. And we clearly know that we are onto something. But in hindsight, will we do two brands? I think we'll just focus on one brand and we'll continue to double down, right? But I think it just so happened that we have two brands right now. And the current thesis is that I think we wanted to build more on the Strive personal care product. And I think this is where we wanted to find more problem statements that have a product market fit, but also it's aligned to the current thesis itself. So it's like personal care, electronics, and it's still synergized with the entire portfolio that is within the brand itself.
What's interesting is that you shared about it being VC backed, right? And I would say that 5 years ago, 10 years ago as well, I think D2C, obviously there was Casper and some of the Harry's in the US, but it wasn't really a category that's being written. How do you think today, from your perspective, what do you think is the fit between VC capital, obviously the return profile, etc., and D2C brands?
Good question. I think it's two things. One is we do see over the years the mandate and the thesis of VCs have evolved as well, from SaaS to Web 2, Web 3 to crypto to AI, and DTC being part of it. I guess we are at a stage where DTC is part of that trend, I would say. If you look at D2C fundamentally, it's a good business. I think margins are generally a bit healthier, north of 60% GP. And because of the nature of the business itself, you generally can have different paths, and VC is just one part of it. I think I've seen a lot of successful founders that bootstrap use profit to grow. If your risk appetite is better, you basically can use debt. And basically, I think VC is also another option. I generally feel that we are at the point where sometimes a lot of founders doesn't really need VCs to grow, and VCs sometimes don't really want to go into D2C as well because there's other vertical to go into. And basically, this is a very tough question because I think in this climate, because it's a tech winter, I think everybody's looking at profitability. The chances of a D2C to make money and actually still grow like 10x is not low. It's actually quite high. When you pull back all your marketing, you are break even, and you just need to find that another one or two of that funnel that it can give you positive returns, and you can just and scalable, and you can still hit 10, 20, 30x return. At the same time, you can do it profitably. I generally feel that it's an interesting vertical to bet at this point in time. But of course, like market changes, interest rate goes down, you can go back to more higher risk assets itself and what. But I feel that the right time right now, I feel that DTC is actually not that bad an asset to back in this time.
What are some myths or misconceptions about building a D2C startup?
I think the two biggest misconception is number one, because we are constantly fundraising, and a lot of VCs, when they look at us, is hey, why are you not profitable? And my answer to them is, if you look at generally a lot of other brands out there, we know a 3 billion Indian supplement brand itself. And the CEO told me that, hey, every new market, it took us 36 months just to break even. And because like you have to invest in the problem statement, the brand itself, the awareness, get people comfortable with the brand, and building behavior, right? Second transaction, third transaction. I think a lot of people say, hey, because you're D2C, you need to make money from day one. No, it's impossible. You generally, for new product, new market, new problem, you still need to invest. And I think you still need to find that fit before you break even. For us, new markets generally take us less than 12 months to break even, but there's still initial investment needed. I think this is a big misconception that a lot of people have. Straight away, you launch something and you make money. The second thing it's misconception is that, hey, I know this channel, this retailer, and I can just put my product there and I can make a decent living. The biggest problem right now is that consumers these days are a lot sharper and more sophisticated. You generally need to educate about a brand and a product for a specific period of time before you go retail, because putting your product in Guardian, Watson, 7-Eleven, or Mannings in Hong Kong wouldn't give you any sales if no one knows what you're trying to solve and what's your UVP. So I think these two are the biggest misconceptions.
On that note, could you share about a time that you personally have been brave?
I think the biggest, I wouldn't say brave, I would say the biggest foolishness that I had when I was younger. And in hindsight, I'm not even sure if I would do it again, but I think it was that a genuinely rush that we want to build something to change the world, as with all founders. It's honestly when the time where I decided to quit Grab and restart something. I feel that that is a biggest pivotal point in my life. The truth of matters is that, like, my parents are, like I mentioned, they came from rag and bone, right? They collect trash for a living. And for a son that actually grew up within that environment and become a head of a department within a unicorn organization, I think there's a lot of baggage. I think they're proud of their son. They want you to succeed. And suddenly tell them, hey, I just quit my high paying job to start a business. And I feel that in this society, like, it's just tough to leave the money on the table and just have nothing and take that risk. But I think it's personally for me, the desire to build something, the desire to make an impact, the desire to solve problems. I think these are things that in hindsight caused me to have that foolish first step to come out. And honestly speaking, foolishness and being brave is sometimes interchangeably, right? But I think that is one of the biggest steps I've taken in my life.
What's so scary about becoming a founder from your perspective?
I think having gone through that, the honest truth is being a founder is sometimes very lonely. You really can't tell your investors that, hey, this is not working out and we're running out of cash. You can't tell your staff as well. Every time we have about 40 people right now, we always tell them that, hey, look, this is good, man. Like, everything is bullish and there's just so many potential. And I think jumping into something that no one has tried out before, you have absolutely no idea where you're going sometimes. It's a good analogy. Is that you jump off a cliff, right? And you're trying to build an aeroplane and you try to fly from there. I think it's really not too different, where every founder have a limited number of time to really validate whatever he or she wants to do. The direction is not clear. But the biggest scary part is that most of the time you're just in your head. You're just trying to figure out, is there potential? What is the purpose of doing this? Is there value? Is there a why there? Is there money in the bank? And do you have the best people that have the commitment to go with you to reach this uncharted territory? And I think somehow or other, it also dabble into a lot of the mental wellness topics that you've come across previously during the previous episodes. And I guess that loneliness is something that I feel that in hindsight is probably one of the scariest things. And this is where, this is not like nothing unsolvable, right? You just need to have really good friends within the entrepreneur cycle. Like yourself, Jeremy, like I remember we had a drink and we just talked about it, and I really appreciate you being there, just being a listening ear. And a lot of friends just to give different advice outside of the company. I think family is very important. I think the person that has go through the most is probably the entrepreneur's wife or husband, because like the husband and wife not there most of the time, both physically and mentally. And I think when they come back home, you just still have to support them. And I feel it's not easy. Now, the loneliness is probably number one on my chart.
And how do you recover or rest or kind of like center yourself?
I think three things. Family is still very important for me. I have two very young kids, 1 month and 3 years old. I make a conscious effort to time block. And I got this from Vinod from Money Smart, right? Like he always time block, and basically it's very important to spend time to keep authenticity and something to look forward to. And I think everyone hang around with is quite important. So positive energy, having different ideas, and basically consider learning from the ecosystem of VCs, entrepreneurs, or even like professionals within the industry. And of course, I think the third thing is that you need to have things outside of work as well. I read a lot. Recently, I just read this book. It's called like, I think The Last Fools. So it's like the 8 Immortals of Lee Kuan Yew. Extremely interesting. It talks about the lieutenants below Lee Kuan Yew and how they built the specific part of Singapore, which I thought is interesting. But reading gives you different perspectives in life, and I think gives you different focus that you can focus on. I think these three things are super important, at least for me.
Amazing. On that note, I'd love to summarize the three big takeaways I got from this conversation. First of all, thanks so much for sharing about you surfing the first two large waves, which is E27, the tech ecosystem building, and also Grab in terms of entry unicorn, and also in terms of the financial and fintech wave. So really fascinating to hear about how you reflected on what's it like to be 0 to 1 as the first 10 employees of a startup versus coming at a company that's about 100 plus employees as well. So fascinating to hear about how you also got promoted at both of these companies and worked your way up. The second thing that was really interesting was about your perspective on live streaming and direct to consumer. So a lot of wisdom around searching for product market fit in terms of how to launch and pick new products, but also some of the luck and serendipity in discovering the product categories to launch, how you went about testing to see whether customers like it as well. Lastly, thanks so much for sharing about your decision to become a founder. It was interesting to hear it from both ways. One was the professional aspect, which was obviously about why you chose to do it and the opportunity you saw and how you figured out what kind of founder you want to be. It was also interesting to hear your personal side about it, which is, I think, the fear, like you said, the loneliness about it, as well as the expectations that you had with yourself and with the family and how to manage that, your spouse, as well as your children and family time. On that note, thank you so much, Roy, for sharing your journey.
Thanks, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We would also appreciate you leaving a rating or review. Head over to www.bravesea.com for member content, resources, and community. Stay well and stay brave.